Hello, I am Rahul Jograna and this is a tutorial series for ASP.NET MVC for beginners. So let's start it with MVC. So in this tutorial series I am going to show you about ASP.NET MVC, what is MVC, what is ASP.NET MVC, why ASP.NET MVC, and one sample application. So what is MVC? MVC stands for Models, View and Controller. MVC separates the application into three components, namely model, view and controllers. So let's check that how MVC works. So whenever request come to the server, it's go to the controller. A controller is nothing but a handler which handles the request from the client and server. Whenever request come for particular controller or web page, the controller find the appropriate view and send a request for the view and a view which render and response back to the controller which is a form of HTML. It's also a view is also component with the model and also with the controller which will take data from the database or response back to the controller and so back to the view. So this is about the MVC architecture. So what is ASP.NET MVC? So developed by the Microsoft, a focus on clean coding, separation of component like design, business logic and handling the request. So it's contains the more powerful feature than other MVC architecture or framework like Ruby on Rails, Java, and it will quickly create a web application using Visual Studio IDE. So why ASP.NET MVC? So quickly create a web application using Visual Studio IDE, which you can create directly or quickly manners web application. It will create a database web application within an entity framework, which will quickly create a database related activity or web application. So secure and built-in performance analysis tools which will provide within Visual Studio IDE. That's why ASP.NET MV is better than others. So easy development tools, deployment tools which you deploy your web application to any server or hosting it to Azure Web Cloud and many more. So let's go and starting with the Visual Studio and let's flip to the Visual Studio. So this is a tool which we use in ASP.NET MVC tutorial series. I am using Visual Studio Ultimate 2012. So let's creating a one MVC application. To do that, you can click on File, New Project, or you can click on New Project with the Start page. You can find with the home page of Start page. So I am adding with the new web application, Add New Project. Within a new dialog box, here you can choose the language which you have to use in your MVC application. I am using Visual C#. You can use either Visual Basic, F#, or C++. I am selecting a web, MVC4 web application, MVC4 application, and select the .NET Framework 4.5. I am give it a name as my first MVC app, and I am change the proper location of my MVC to the resource. Okay, select, which will physically store our MVC application to ASP.NET MVC and resources. The solution name as it is a name of our application. Hit OK, and I'm give it a basic. You can in this tutorial I'm going to show about basic, and hit OK. Here is a view engine which will render your page as a razor, or you can select SPX. I'm clicking on basic razor. Hit OK. It will take times to creating a web application in for us. So it will display that OK. I'm press OK. So MVC application is easy with the development of Visual Studio, because it will create a quickly manner which contain more and more features than others. the entity framework of the MVC architecture, which provided by the Visual Studio or Microsoft, is too easy. You can directly use within the entity framework. I am showing in a later video of my project. So here it adds something file for us. You can see here adding Microsoft ASP.NET library or namespace for us. When you are creating a first time your application, it's take a time. So our project is ready. So go to the view and find our application, the view solution explorer. So you can see that our application is ready. My first MVC app, you can see our application is ready. So you can see here it's contained many files for us. Let's go and add something to our web application. When I'm running my application, what's its display? Let's check it. To run it, you can press here, or either you can press F5 to run your application. So you can find here localhost. Our project is running on localhost 2090, which is a port number. When I am running initially, this will display error because we have nothing add to our project, which will as a controller means I have already discussed that controller act as a request handler. Let's add one controller to our project. To do that, you can right click on a controller, press add and controller, and I am giving it name home and hit OK. You can template empty MVC controller. Yes, I want empty MVC. Add. So this will add one controller for us, which will contain namespace for us, required namespace. And you can find here home control is a controller for us, which will implement the controller. You can go to the definition of that, go to definition, and you can find here which will redirect to a controller from metadata. You can see here profile, request and response, because controller is responsible for handling a request and response for the client, and URL, users, content, being execute, dispose and execute, JSON result, and many more. So this is a controller, and let's add one view to our controller. So to add a view, we have right click on a controller, which is index, add view, click on add view. You can see the name of the view, index razor ch.html, which is the extension for Ajax or razor engine. You can, as it is, I made add with it and hit add. So you can see the controller add one view for us, and let's run it. So when I press run button, it will redirect to a browser and show home control on our project. So when I am pressing on home button, it will redirect to browser and display something. So you can see here it will display index because it is a handle within a controller. It will redirect to our view controller, which is here. Let's change the property of it. I am changing the property home page. Save it, and I am refreshing it. So you can see home page. Here you can see here nothing is shown because I am add a home, which is our home controller, and index. So you can also find with the home page within a home controller and index. So how it's come from that? So to check it, we have one global ASFX file within our project. So you can find here it will contain application start. When our project first start, it will first check with the global ASX file, which will starting our project. It will redirect our project with the web config file and global ASX file. So this is, you can find the routing config protocol. So this is nothing but routing information which have our project.